with the She Is Me conference. It is 10 a.m. Pacific, and we are joined with Shannon Ferguson from Canada and Fan Saves. Shannon, take it away.
Thank you so much for having me today. I'm so excited to share my story with all of you and to really hopefully resonate with a lot of the people listening today. So, if you feel like you're standing still in your life or in your business, don't worry, because if you're standing still, then at least you're still standing. I really want to be here to help you take back your power after overcoming hardship. Like Lisa said, I'm Shannon Ferguson. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Fan Saves. And before I founded my company, my life got a little turned upside down. Before I get into it, I really want you to think about, if you've ever felt like your life or your business is moving at a slower pace than you expected it to. I know this hit people really hard during the pandemic when almost all of us were forced to stand still at some point. So, if you've ever felt like the tortoise in the fable, the tortoise and the hare, this is really for you. Even if not, I really think you could take a lot away from this today, because I want you guys to know that, if you feel this way, you're not alone. If you're not constantly making big moves, if you're not making millions of dollars in your business right off the bat, if you're not married yet or having kids or getting engaged like everyone on social media at a particular moment in time, none of these things make you a failure. Being like the tortoise doesn't mean you're falling behind. Sometimes slow and steady is really the only way to win this race that we call life. Sometimes standing at all is the best you can do on any given day. Sometimes getting out of bed at all, or putting food in your body, or having only one Zoom meeting, or completing one or two business tasks. I'm not here to tell you that you should only just aspire to get out of bed in the morning, but on those days that you can very easily lie down and give up, if you get through those days, you're still doing okay. Remember that you're still standing. Now, I always had a very linear life growing up. I was always on the go as a teenager and as a kid. I graduated high school on time. I graduated university on time. I started my career in marketing on time. I even got married on time. I was doing everything right. I was living this linear life. And a lot of that was because of my strong upbringing. My linear life can really be attributed to my mom. She was a single mom. I myself am an only child. And, she always wanted to ensure that I had a better life than her modest upbringing. She was an entrepreneur herself. And from a young age, I really learned the value of hard work and of never giving up. My mom and I have this bond that can never be broken. And I'm so glad she passed on her kindness to me and her strength and her perseverance. My mom really taught me that, you can dream big, but, sometimes things take time. Sometimes the most we can do is take things one day at a time. And boy, was I going to need to heed that advice. Because in 2014, my linear life became linear no more. You see, up until then, I had been living my life on time and not standing still at any given moment until I was standing still. My mom was diagnosed with pulmonary fibrosis. She was healthy her whole life. Doctors could never figure out why her lungs had become scarred. And I ended up taking time off work, time off from my career to be with her in the hospital after she underwent a double lung transplant. And, during that time, I really started thinking about, what am I doing with my life? Life is really short, trying to put the pieces together and really seeing the bigger picture. Then, a month after my mom's successful double lung transplant, my husband woke up one morning and he packed his bags And he told me that it was really affecting him. It was really affecting him that I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. I haven't heard his voice since that day. My life stood still as I tried to figure out what the hell was going on. This was someone that I'd known since I was 6 years old, and it left me shocked. And at the same time, I was still dealing with my mom recovering from her surgery. So about a year later, in the summertime, the divorce was finalized. And 3 months after that, my mom had a heart attack. And after spending a month in the ICU, she passed away. I was the one who had to tell the doctors it was okay to take her off life support. You know, I lied with her in her bed at the hospital as she took her last breath. And I was the one who told her it was okay to go. As I got out of her hospital bed after spending the day in there with her, my legs, they gave out on me and I couldn't physically stand up. I sat on the floor next to her bed and I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. But eventually I peeled myself up off the floor and my life again stood still. And it stood still for over a year afterwards as I dealt with something called complicated grief. I never knew that complicated grief was a thing. I never had heard of it. I had never known it was really something that a person could go through until I actually went through it. The year following my mom's passing was incredibly bleak for me. And the height of my grief culminated about 3 months after her 1-year anniversary. There was a night I found myself lying on my living room floor at 4 a.m., crying to my best friend on the phone that I just didn't want to be here anymore, that I just wanted to see my mom again. I got through that dark night and, again, I peeled myself up off the floor. And 2 days later, two days later, this guy named Chris, he came into my life and my world changed. Chris and I began working together, and it wasn't long before we were also dating. My life began to grow again. Day by day, I began to find my purpose again, and nothing happened overnight, but slowly I was finding happiness in the little things again. I liked getting out of bed in the morning and, doing things and being part of the community. And, about 6 months after we met, Chris and I created Fan Saves. We created Fan Saves to help with this sponsorship problem that we kept running into with the professional hockey team we were working for. We were both selling sponsorship as we were managing the sales and marketing for the hockey team. And a lot of business owners kept telling us they wanted more than just a rink board or a scoreboard ad or a wall sign. And business owners were telling us they wanted something that was digital, something that would actually bring people into their stores and track customer demographics. And we didn't have anything like that. So we created Fan Saves, which offers fans discounts and deals from the sponsors of their favorite teams. Started as an app, now it's a full-blown digital platform. We're working with over 40 organizations across North America, and over 500 businesses are offering discounts and deals. All of this at that moment, when I was lying on the floor 2 days before I met Chris, would never have seemed possible. I couldn't have even imagined that. But, now I'm here more than 4 years later, and I'm doing things that back then seemed completely impossible to even think of. But what I learned from that time in my life was that it is possible to overcome standing still or life getting out of whack or seeming like things are paused. I learned that sometimes we need to hit the reset button. And I learned that we are always stronger than we think we are. When we're going through hard times, we can feel weak and we can feel like we just need to give up. But at our core, we're always stronger than we think we are. Another thing I learned is that life is not linear. Life is not linear at all, and it's actually not meant to be linear. What I've learned is that life would actually be really extremely completely boring if it was as linear as you see in this picture. Those twists and turns and peaks and valleys that we all go through, that's what life is. Life isn't meant to be from point A to point B. You might be listening here today and thinking that your life is still on time. That you never stand still, that you always hustle. And that's amazing. 10 years ago, I would have told you the same thing. I would have thought the same thing. I would have been like, oh, this is nice, but it doesn't apply to me. But, we can never predict when our life or business or anything else is going to stand still. And maybe you're here and you've already been going through it. Or maybe you're going, maybe in the future, maybe you're just at the brink or on the edge of going through it. Or maybe you are deep in it, or maybe you're just coming out on the other side of it. Either way, it really helps to be prepared. It helps to know how to navigate the feeling of standing still. And I want to share with you some ways that I took back my power after overcoming those hardships that helped me realize that I was actually standing the whole time, even when I was standing still. These are things that really helped me realize that we can always find the power within ourselves. The first thing is to be patient, but also persevere. Now, I'm a decently patient person, but when I'm working really hard, I want to see the results like sooner rather than later. And I think a lot of people are like that. And with FanSaves, being the co-founder and the CEO of a startup, which when we created FanSaves, Chris and I had no clue what a startup even was. We thought right from the beginning, that we would be millionaires in a year and that we would be working with major league teams right away. And when that didn't happen, it would have been really easy to give up and to throw in the towel. But we didn't. And it's been 4 years now, and we're finally getting to that point that we thought we'd be at right away. But had we given up, we never would have got to where we are. We never would have been, exploring pilots and talking and working with major league teams like we are today. I think it's so important to not give up and to be patient. There's Napoleon Hill's book, Think and Grow Rich, he talks about 3 feet from gold, about a man who, found gold and bought a gold mine and was digging for gold, and eventually it ran dry. And he was so certain that it was on this path. And he ended up selling, the gold mine to a business person. And that person realized that the earth had just shifted a bit. And he dug 3 feet from where the former person was digging, and that's where all the gold was. So oftentimes on the days when Chris and I could easily give up, we remind ourselves that we are 3 feet from gold. Gold is right around the corner. We just need to keep digging and maybe figure out a way to adjust our course. Being patient is something that babies are really good at. So at one point in all of our lives, we were babies and we had to learn how to walk. And if you watch a baby today, if you watch it walk, it's really funny. It tries and it falls and it tries and it falls. But imagine if babies were just like, oh, I can't do it. I'm just never going to walk. Like, no, the baby keeps trying because it trusts the process. It is innately built into us as human beings to keep going, to not give up. And I think it's so important to remember that you need to crawl, then walk, then run. So many people, and especially me, I want to start and I want to run right away. I want to get there. I want to be like running a marathon. But what I've realized since founding FanSaves is that sometimes the most basic, crucial, critical elements of life and of business are learned when you're crawling. and then it learns, and then the bigger step is to walk. And when we take ourselves back there and have that patience to go through the process and trust the process, then we're actually going to be able to run faster in the long run. The other thing is to grow slow, to grow big. Sometimes the slower you grow and getting your processes and getting things in place, when those things happen, that's how you can grow big. Instead of just going right into it, thinking you're going to grow big right away, that's not usually how it happens. And what we've really learned is that most businesses are a 10-year overnight success. The other thing is to accept change. So this is also a big thing. Being in, we're in the tech space, and Chris and I are non-technical co-founders. So we've had to, definitely accept a lot of change that's come across our path. That from the beginning, if you looked at our first app, it was completely different than it looks today. Had almost a different offering than it has today. So for us, we've really had to accept that change so that we can get to the next step. And I love to, compare this to when a caterpillar is becoming a butterfly. When that caterpillar is, transitioning and it's in its cocoon, it's probably thinking, what the hell is going on? But it accepts the changes and it comes out on the other side as a beautiful butterfly. And, what I've learned is that changing course doesn't mean you're giving up. Even if these changes are negative, they can often do lead to the most positive outcomes. And, understanding that there is always a bigger picture and trusting that everything happens for a reason. I think that's something that a lot of people struggle with is wondering why this is happening. Why me? Why me? Why me? Why is this so bad? We just went through something with our business where we were supposed to be in the States and we couldn't leave the country because there was a mix up with our COVID tests. This happened last minute. And it was very, very frustrating. But in that same moment, Chris and I looked at each other and we said, everything happens for a reason. We can't be mad. We can't change this. We can't dwell on it. What can we do this week to make sure that we're still being successful? And I think it's that mindset that has really allowed us to grow and to propel our business forward, recognizing and realizing that when things go bad, it could actually be leading you to something better. So accepting change is always such a big part of not just running a business, but also just living your life to the fullest, to its fullest possibility. Now, the third thing that is really important is just leaning in to the moments that are speaking to you, that are showing you different paths and different ways to find your success. Again, whether this is with your own business or in your personal relationships, or just for you becoming a better person. This is so important. And, things move fast these days. Things being digital, social media, there's a lot of buzz and a lot of different things coming at us all the time. And people aren't taking enough time to be quiet and to be with their own thoughts and to understand who they are in those quiet moments. I think it's so important to let go of the idea of perfection, especially. This is hard for a lot of us. This is hard for me. I now remind myself done is better than perfect, because oftentimes I like to get things done perfect, and then I'm creating stress in my life that doesn't need to be there. So, really giving yourself grace and allowing yourself to fall from grace, or allowing yourself to pat yourself on the back when you do succeed at something. And using time when you are standing still, when life is, has come to a halt, or things are paused, or you're not sure where your next step in life is going to be, use this time to really re-energize and tap into your creativity. These are often the times and the moments in your life when you will actually be the most creative. Because you don't have the pressure coming from all these different things in your life. You have the time to really enjoy the stillness and the quiet, and taking those quiet moments to figure out who you really are, to get creative, and to figure out what you really want out of life. You know, I think the biggest thing as well when you are standing still and going through a hard time is to continue to have a vision or create a new one. Then lean into this vision, lean into this thing, that whatever it is in your mind that you've created, lean into it and really figure out if this is the path that you want to be on, and start working towards it every day. Again, going back to my other point, you don't need to start and run with it right away. Like, you can start, being creative, thinking of different thoughts, putting a plan together, and then actually executing that plan. It's just really important when you are going through a hard time or a big change or something like a pandemic to actually do something during those times where you are learning, where you are bettering yourself, where you are becoming the best version of who you are meant to be. It's really, it really comes down to the fact that, like, you can choose to not be standing. You can choose to lie down, and you can choose to give up. That choice is always going to be yours. But then what? You're not a failure even if it feels like you're standing still and you're not sure what your next move is. You're not failing if you're paused. That doesn't mean it's game over. You're not a failure even if your business is growing slower than you expected. You're not a failure if you're overcoming hard times or big life changes. We all need to treat ourselves more like we treat our car. When our car runs out of gas, you don't just, send it to the junkyard and say, oh, scrap this car, it's no good. No, you fill it up with fuel, and then you keep going along on your journey. So if we could do that for our car, why can't we do that for ourselves? Fill yourself up so you have the power to keep going. So, in the end, what I hope for you is that you'll see that you were never actually standing still at all, that the progress that you made or that you're making right now during these humbling times is ultimately what catapulted you forward in the end. My mom always said, take everything one day at a time and trust in yourself no matter what. She will always, always be alive in my words, in my actions, in my hope for the future, reminding me to keep going. And now, even on the hard days in my life or with fan saves, I remind myself that I need to be patient, that I need to accept the changes that are being thrown at me, and that I need to lean in. And I really hope that these tips can help you take back your power. And, in the end, I want you to remember that even if you're standing still, remember that you are still standing. Thank you so much. I really hope that we can connect. Follow me on Instagram, Twitter, connect with me on LinkedIn. If I can be of any help or any service to you, if you've went through anything similar or are dealing with it right now, complicated grief or starting a business or being a woman in tech, reach out to me, send me an email, check out my website, and I would just love to stay in touch. And just a quick note, it's shannonferguson.ca, not .com. Everyone makes mistakes, and I just noticed that one. So thank you so much. I look forward to connecting with you all. Oh, I can't hear you. Can you hear me?
That's my fault. I've had a problem with the sound today. Maybe it's just fatigue from 4 days of, so I don't know. No, I'm having a great time. Thank you so much for sharing your story and for being, so brave to come up and share that with us. I really, really appreciate it. So glad to meet you. So glad to have you join us. I really want to let everybody know that Shannon was someone who just responded to a call for speakers and was probably the most on top of things throughout. The first to respond and give me everything I needed, and very thorough, and just I really, really appreciate you and you joining us. And we are going to be back here at 11. We've got Larkin Sell joining us at 11 o'clock, and we're going to take a little break now. Shannon, thank you. And stay on once we go off here so we can chat a little bit, okay?
Thank you so much. This was so awesome and such a pleasure. I'm so happy that I was able to be part of this.
All right. See you soon.